My name is Max Hodges, and I'm help support group for the XP-82 here, and we're in Oshkosh this weekend. And a little bit about the aircraft is the aircraft was built in 1945 and test flown just prior to the dropping or the end of the war, and its purpose in life was to escort the B-29s over Japan. However, the war ended, and this aircraft was designated to the testing facilities for the U.S. Air Force. Until it flew from 1945 to 1949, where it skidded off the runway, and it was damaged, and then it was disassembled and sold for surplus. And a man named Walter Saplata bought it in 1949 and put it in his collection of aircraft that he'd been collecting over years, which he collected many, many aircraft. It was purchased in 2007. The family agreed to sell the aircraft and the parts for it, and it was purchased by a group of investors, and Mr. Tom Riley headed that group of investors up, and where it's been meticulously disassembled and reassembled in what you see here today. They've scoured the world for parts, and all over the world and country for parts, and people had stores of spares that they didn't know they had that turned out to be the correct spares for the aircraft. And the aircraft is back up. We found an engine for it. It has a very odd engine because it's a left-hand turning engine. And it was found in Mexico City in a can, brand new, never run engine in Mexico City. So we were able to acquire that. And as far as I'm aware of, there's only about 4 other engines total that will turn left as far as the Merlin-powered aircraft. This is a Merlin-powered, it's not Allison, this is a Merlin-powered aircraft, 1,700 horsepower. And we were fortunate that Vintage V12 was able to acquire the left-hand turning engine, and they also required this engine, the correct turning engine on the left side of the aircraft. Aircraft's got 10 years of investment of man and woman hours in there, like Tom likes to say. One of the most amazing person out here is Wheezy, which she did all the research and finding parts between Tom and Wheezy. Wheezy did all the drawings, and then over here we have Mr. John Eiler, who is our machinist that did the magnificent CNC work to get a lot of the complex parts made for the aircraft. It's been an amazing project to watch come through. I've personally, when I first saw it, didn't see anywhere in any shape, form that this airplane would ever come together, but it has come together. There's been many amazing people that have worked on this and done amazing work. And I'm just a small part of it, and I'm just kind of like a nuts and bolts type. I work on the engine and the props and the hydraulics, and those have been my areas of work on it. I didn't really do any of the sheet metal work. I did a little bit, but very little to really say I did anything is very nominal. But anyway, it's a great aircraft to come see. It's a one and only. There's only 5 in existence out here in the world today. This being one. There's 2 in the Air Force Museum that has 2. There is one more that's in restoration. It's called an F-82. And it's owned by Mr. Pat Harker, and it should be flying probably within the next maybe 2 years, maybe less, maybe more, I don't know. But it's up to them how much they're going to work on their aircraft. This Mr. Tom Riley just walked behind me. He's the major person that built the aircraft and headed the restoration of the aircraft, as he's done many other aircraft. I think this is aircraft number 33 that he has as restored, maybe one more or less. I don't remember, I lost count. But anyway, it's been an amazing project that's out here, and hope everybody comes, sees it, and enjoys it. Well, there's nothing in common with this airplane other than looks with the Mustang. There's nothing. The hydraulics are different. The engine might be the same, but it's actually a 1,780 horsepower engine as opposed to a 1,590 horsepower engine. The props are not original. We couldn't get anybody to build a left-hand turning propeller, and MT propeller stepped up and they manufactured the left-hand turning blades, and so they're there. We have Aero Product stickers on there because that was the original. We were trying to keep it original, but they are MT propeller blades made in Germany.
So one turns right and one turns left.
Yeah, they're counter-rotating props, and that was the fallacy of the aircraft when it first got flying, because they tried to mimic the P-38, which the blades turned outboard, and the inside blades, the upswinging blades, canceled out the lift of the center section of the wing, so the wing stayed in a stalled condition until they got it in the air one time. They couldn't get it to fly, and the engineers decided that they would swap the engines. And once they swapped the engines side to side, the aircraft flew as it is today. And it's a great airplane. This is more based upon, it has more similarities to an H model Mustang. However, this airplane is quite a bit bigger. It's over 5.5 feet longer than a normal Mustang, and you can actually walk under the cowling of this where you cannot walk under a cowling of a regular Mustang due to the fact of the landing gear. Like I say, everything in there is no similarities with the Mustang except for the looks. The engine and radiators are all a little bit, the radiators are a little larger, has a different, the cooling system is based on a H model Mustang's cooling system, which is different than all D models. And the brake system is a Goodyear brake system, which we had a very stiff learning system on it because there's no one who could tell us about them. We had to learn the brake system from scratch and try to think like an engineer, and it took us several people to get it involved, and we finally got the brake system working like it's supposed to, which is quite different than anything that any of us have ever worked on or familiar with, so that was a pretty big deal. What else is about this? Of course, it doesn't, it's a center elevator. It's got two tail wheels, and those have to be timed together. Has a little bit different induction trunk. You can see how far the coolant doors are down. They can go a little bit more. There's a system, automatic retraction system on that if you have the coolant doors wide open, the gear goes down, it will actually raise the coolant doors about 8 degrees, 8 to 10 degrees, so it won't drag the ground. On the back, the aircraft has, it was a development airplane. It does have 6 machine guns, 650 caliber machine guns in the center wing, and yes, the arcs do clear the gun barrel range. You see, the canopy is a little bit different than a regular Mustang. You can see it's quite a bit larger. It does not interchange with any of them. We were fortunate to find 3 of them. There's several stories about the canopies that we found. There's no we to that, it's what Tom found. The center section is almost 14 feet across, so the pilot and co-pilot, the only communication they have is either sight or by radio, if you can see how far it is apart. So it's swinging 2 big propellers, so it's almost 14 feet across. The airplane empty weight weighs about 15,000 pounds, and combat weight with fuel is approaching 18,000 plus pounds. As it sits right now, it's 14,000, empty weight's 14,900 pounds. So it's very heavy on the gear. It's got one battery in it. It holds 600 gallons of fuel internally. This airplane is original. We kept it original. It's very heavy on the controls. On the ailerons, it's very heavy. We do not have boosted controls. That came a little bit later in its history, but this is the prototype, and this is the actual airplane that made the first flight with the test flight program.
Fly it from both sides.
You can fly it from both sides. However, the right side cockpit does not allow you to raise or lower the landing gear, but it does have an emergency extension for the right side cockpit. But it's fully functional, but you do not have magnetos or starting switches. Everything's done from the left, but the airplane was designed to allow both pilots to recline, put the rudder pedals out of the way, and one pilot could rest while the other pilot would take over their flight duties, and they could swap out their duties to keep them from becoming too fatigued, because their missions were 8 hours plus long. And we lost a lot of pilots, a lot of airplanes due, number one, to fatigue, number two is to fuel starvation, and if you had battle damage, they just didn't make it home. And that was the purpose of having two engines and two pilots, is if one pilot were to be wounded or incapacitated in any way, the other pilot could help get it home, and also the redundancy of the two engines, and that was the purpose that the airplane was designed that way for. Because we lost a lot of Mustangs trying to escort B-29s, and that's what its mission was to escort B-29s over Japan. However, they dropped the atomic bomb, the war was over, so when the aircraft went into production, it was no longer had the original role it was designed to be. The aircraft after that, this particular aircraft stayed in the testing program. Just about every weapon that these airplanes carried was tested on this particular airplane, and that they were all used until this airplane slid off an icy runway in 1949. All the F model airplanes were Allison. There were 22 of these made with Merlin powered. The rest, there was 272 of them completely built. With 22 Merlin powered, the rest were Allison powered. They didn't want to pay any royalties to the British government anymore, so General Motors came in and said, we want to furnish the engine so we don't have to pay those unnecessary royalties. So this is one original with Merlin power. The rest the other one that you might see in the coming year will be the Allison powered version. The other things that we've done, it's just been a meticulously restored airplane with countless people and contributing to the rebuild and mastery of aluminum. And you can see things that you might say that are maybe not perfect. However, if you can see the actual pictures of the original airplane, it's identical to the original airplane. I mean, you can see the kind of the dimpling in the skin, where you might see some of the Mustangs that actually perfect skin. If you look in the photos of the airplane, you can actually see the dimples. This is the way it was built. This is the original of the airplane. If you notice the skin, the wing skins are perfect, but you'll see dimples in the side skins of the fuselage. But if you'll see the pictures of the actual airplane in 1949, you see the same dimples in there. We have original radios. I'll open this up. They're all original. They're all original World War II radios, except for the fire extinguisher. That's for us. But there is an original fire extinguisher right there. But all the radio gear is in there. It's all original. And all this was handmade by some very talented people.
Thank you for watching. If you're looking for something to do, or you are traveling through Milwaukee Mitchell International Airport, stop by the Mitchell Gallery of Flight for some aviation history.